there's all these different elements, and every day a different funny horoscope's going to come up. So it's really, we're launching December 1st, so it's what do we need now? Okay, what needs to be done? Well, we're shooting, on Thursday this week, we're shooting some stuff with Patrick. Welcome to the website. He's going to come walking out of the bar, will be, 50%, 55. And we, oh, come on, this is what it's like. This is the frustration, hurry up, hurry up. This is ADHD, this is what it's, and so on. So, well, we got the set ready. So I'm on the phone talking to the studio, and then there's so many different jobs that I'm handling, and then I'm direct, when it gets close to, then I'm having to sit down and actually think about how I'm going to shoot it. But I'll probably, tomorrow at some point, take another pass at the script just to make sure I tighten it up. Because every time you can take out extra words, if you make it 20% shorter, people think you're 20% faster because you get to the punchlines that much quicker. So my days are probably different from most in that it's really handling what needs doing that day. And when we're in production, I'm hardly doing any writing at that point. It's really producing and then directing. If I'm doing both, balancing between. My wife is co-producing, so she's really good at. She has a whole different skill set. Her background is in editing, which is much more about. I'm like, here's 1,000 ideas, and she's like, okay, well, these are the gems. This is all you need to tell you. Yeah, that's a funny idea. I know it's funny, but look, this is a diamond. You've got a diamond here. You don't need to keep. So she's able to tease out and find that. So the same thing. She's very good at keeping. She's a much more linear thinker. They call it linear editing, which is story editing. So the days are varied, and then at certain points it's just writing. I'd have to say I don't just sit down to write very often aimlessly. Just kind of to write. I used to, but I don't have the time. I don't know if I'd say I don't have the time, but.
Well, it's not really as necessary. Maybe when you were with the Frantics,
yeah.
I could probably see the constant spewing out. Anytime something popped into your head, scribbling down.
Yeah.
And now you're a bit more structured.
What's interesting, what's very interesting about this is that creativity, I believe, is really a muscle. So if we, how many people here are interested in World War II? A few. But if we were each given $1 million to come up with to sit in here and come up with a movie idea about World War II, and we had 2 months to do it, by the end of a month, you'd have all kinds of, you'd be coming up with amazing ideas about how the grenade could come through the window. Because you'd be sitting there thinking about it. You'd hear stuff, it would spark, and so on. So when I was with the Frantics, I was shocked at the amount of, the number of skit ideas that came up, just in a day, just again and again. So my mind was really focused on that. When it went to History Bites, when we were doing that, same thing. When it was Prisoners of Gravity, which was more editorial and connected, I was astonished at, stuff would be tumbling, the brain's working, right? You put in as much fuel as you can and as much ammo to see what happens. But it was astonishing to me how often I'd be sitting, I said, I know, we can go from there to there, and that's kind of like the Titanic, and the Titanic, and there was actually a book, what was that book about the ship that sank and floated under, and I could, so the mind really is, when you focus it's surprising to me how you can focus your creativity. But I guess that's true of everyone. If you have kids, you start, and you got little children running around, your mind is thinking about safety. You start noticing things you didn't notice before. You buy a Windstar and you notice a lot of Windstars around. You buy a Prius, you see Priuses everywhere. Your mind, although it's roaming all the time, it really is about what you want to apply it to. And I know at one point I sat down and I had an idea for an action sequence. I forgot what it was, but I wrote it out. And the next 2 weeks, I came up with 20 more ideas because my mind just started going, oh, what if the car went off the parking garage and into the next part, whatever they were. I can't remember what they were, but and like 5 or 10 of them were good enough to go in a film. But I wasn't that interested in writing an action film, so I didn't.
The next question we have is from the gentleman in the back from the convention today, Banff.
Yes, about the pitching.
Banff is a good place to go. You want to arrange to meet people? Yeah, I think Banff is a good idea, especially since you're out here already. For me in Toronto, I can sort of see a lot of the people that I would need to see there. And so in some ways it's, going to Banff for me to pitch someone who I can go visit in their office is a waste of their time because they don't get to see you when they're in Toronto, and you don't get to see them. So I tend not to, I mean, I've gone to Banff, but I tend not to try and pitch. I just kind of sit in the classes as much as I can and learn and listen and hear, listen for the gold. But yeah, Banff is actually a very good structure, and it's, they have different programs. So there's where you can submit your writing, submit your idea, and if you get picked, you're on the right track. I don't know if you'll get feedback or not. It's definitely a valuable opportunity. It's not cheap, but it's especially if you can find somewhere to stay, it gets way cheaper. Banff is, for those who don't know, is the television festival every year, and it's one of the biggest. It's smaller in the last 2 years just because nobody's buying anything, so there's not much point in sending your people over there to look around. We'll see. Other questions?
I don't know if this really applies to you anymore. When you're between a project, how much time or effort do you invest in a single idea, or do you just brainstorm and go? Somebody asked me what I've got now. I've got 17 different ideas that I can give them.
Yeah, that's a good question. When I'm between projects, yeah, sure I am. And even when I'm in the middle of projects, ideas come up. Someone says something, and a penny drops. So we should do something about that. What I'm not good at is getting the idea completed. So I have 3,500,000 proposals. Have a bunch of proposals started and not finished. Some, but my agent is good at is keeping the track, getting it until it's ready to go, and then we go looking for something. The trick in that is to have lots of ideas, right? They aren't hard to come up with in some ways. They really aren't. But it's how do you tailor it so that it's marketable? So do you want to brainstorm for a minute?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll play. So we'll take cosplay. A couple of people say, you do a show about cosplay. Like costume dress up and all of that. My daughter's done some of that. So we want to do a show. So the first question is, who are we going to take this to? Could go to YTV, right? Who else? Well, space, obviously.
Depending on the level, maybe Treehouse.
Yeah, okay. You might be able to get away with